good to go. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the closing live stream of our 2022 gala. It's awesome to have you here. I'm Meredith Bartley. I am a communications coordinator with ASAN. I'll let my colleagues introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Dean. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm a communications associate here at ASAN.
Forgot to unmute myself. Hi, I'm Avery Outlaw. I'm the Deputy Director of Operations here at ASAN.
And I'm Alex Grenstaff. I am ASAN's program coordinator. Third time's the charm. And my pronouns are they, them, theirs.
Perfect. Yeah, so we're just hanging out. We wanted to try being streamers for night. So we're just hanging out. We have some questions prepared. We're open to your questions for the most part. But we're gonna start with a special interest minute. Dean, tell me about your special interest.
Yes, so one of my special interests is tabletop role-playing games. So I have, let's see, this is my big binder. Because I jump between having things Googleable on my own, like wikis, and having physical copies. But mostly I play Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, but I've been learning more about things like Pathfinder and different one-shots. But generally, it's just a super fun way to like hang out with my friends and use some of the skills that I got from like musical theater in high school. But I'm just a super big fan of like tabletop role-playing games as like a means of storytelling, because I think it's super fun. It's like skills you don't get to use super often. And there's just so many different games. I recently played Trapped in a Cabin with Lord Byron, which was a one-shot about being trapped in a cabin with Lord Byron. So I just really like how different the stories can get. And it's very fun to me.
Nice. And who would you say is a big inspiration to you when it comes to tabletop role playing?
Very much Brennan Mulligan, Dimension 20. Also shout out to the Adventure Zone, which I don't follow super close anymore, but it was what introduced me to like actual plays and got me into D&D.
Nice. So actual play is genre?
Actual plays is when people either through a podcast or video will just like record their experience of playing. Usually Dungeons and Dragons is a big one, but it can be any tabletop role-playing game. It could be a one-shot, a whole big campaign. A lot of folks will know Dimension 20 is one of the big ones. There are a ton of actual plays out there. Dungeons and Daddies, Friends at the Table. There are a ton of really just people playing this game together.
That's really cool. I think that's really cool. There's a lot of content out there. Awesome. Well, that was our first special interest minute. Do you want to answer any questions? You're our first guest, or you're our host, co-host. I'm here. I've been here the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. I can pull a random one.
Sure.
I'm gonna do the 18 and 18. Oh, how do you feel about puns? I'm not the best at making puns. I personally love them though. I think they're very funny. I always think they're clever. I will immediately like if someone makes a good pun, immediately have to shut them down. I can't allow it, but I do think they're very fun.
Nice. This is a question that has a lot of ASAN lore behind it, which is that just as we are divided into theater kids and non-theater kids, along with some other false dichotomies, we also are led, our fearless leader, we are led by a notorious pun hater. And so every time you get an email with a subject line or any sort of pun snuck into the body of that email, just know that we did that to spite our dear executive leader or our executive director. And so they come at great cost. We are pretty much split 50-50 with who likes puns and who doesn't. And so it's a great victory when we get one in, when we get a good one in. We don't do just puns willy-nilly because they have to pass muster. So yeah.
Yeah, there are no lackadaisical opinions about puns at ASIN. Everyone has a very strong opinion, pros and cons. Fascinating. I've never seen a group so torn about puns, but
Almost like we are all autistic and really sometimes fall into some stereotypes about seeing things in black and white. Anyway, if you didn't know, tonight is Giving Tuesday, which was a really cool way to wrap up our gala. We've been having events every Tuesday this month. We started with our opening ceremony and some Stop the Shock night of action, where we updated you on the fight against the JRC, Judge Rottenberg Center. We had a cool panel about voting because it was election day. We had our usual award ceremony. We heard from some awesome people the next week. That fourth week, just last week with Thanksgiving, we had another panel about our rights under threat as disabled people, as LGBTQ people, with everything going on at the Supreme Court. And now we're here. If any of those sounded cool, you can find them on our YouTube. If you are watching this on YouTube, you're even closer to finding all of those. But our YouTube is just the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, and you can find all of those there. But now we're wrapping up. It is Giving Tuesday. If you are able to give, that would be great. We can't do it without you. The gala is a celebration of our work and self-advocacy, but it also helps us, keep the pedal to the metal as far as our work goes. We can make new toolkits. We can keep fighting for Stop the Shock. We can do all of the things that we do, including just helping keep the lights on. So we would really appreciate if you're able to help out. And Dean just dropped the link in the chat. That was really smart. Oh, and Zoe's here. How long has Zoe been here? I've been on my soapbox.
Hi, how's it going?
Hi, and Katie Spoon's here.
I have brought Katie Spoon because I'm here to talk about dogs. And so I thought I would show my dog. She's going to want to jump down in a little bit, but I wanted her to say hi.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, introduce yourself.
So I'm Zoe. I'm the Director of Advocacy at the Autistic Self-Advocate. I'm going to put her down. Hi. There are some flaws, it turns out, to the plan of talking with a dog on my lap. So I'm the Director of Advocacy at the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network. I'm here for my special interest minute to talk about dogs, which are one of my favorite things. And so I want to show you my own dog. Her name is Katie Spoon. She's a rat terrier. We think she's a rescue. She's a very good girl. And then I want to talk about a dog that I just learned about this last week while I was watching the National Dog Show, which is a Norwegian Lundehund. And a Lundehund is spelled Lundehund. Lunda means puffin, and it's called a puffin hound because they hunt puffins. That's what they were bred to do. Which is, would be illegal in some places where puffins are a protected species, but presumably they weren't at the time the dog was bred. It was a very ancient breed, is my understanding. It's a very rare breed. There are about 1,400 in the world, with most of them being in Norway. It is about 13 to 15 pounds. It's kind of like brown and scruffy looking. It looks terrier-y. It's very cute. And my favorite thing about them is they have 6 toes. Dogs normally don't, but they have 6 toes to help them latch on and climb on the rocks as they're hunting the puffins.
That is impressive. And they compete in the dog show?
Yeah, so they are one of the breeds recognized by the American Kennel Club, which means they're allowed to compete in the National Dog Show. Presumably they have to find one that wants to compete because there's so few of them. But there must be a breed community out there for them, like with many other breeds.
Nice. That's awesome. That was a great special interest minute. I'm really glad that you brought Katie Spoon.
Yes, I love to bring her wherever I can.
Yes, can we talk about Katie Spoon's contributions to ASAN's work?
Yes. So Katie Spoon has contributed a lot to ASAN during COVID. I got her right before quarantine began. Um, and so she was my work from home, remote work buddy for a very long time. And then when I began to be able to come back into the office for days here and there, I would sometimes bring Katie with me. So Katie Spoon is an emotional support animal to anyone who needs or seeks her support while in the office together. Her many contributions include licking people, getting hair all over the office furniture, squeaking her squeaky toys while people are on phone calls, investigating the office, and many other important duties that she does in her work.
Thank you.
You know, it can be a kind of stressful job. We work on a lot of issues that, you know, are really like life and death for our community: Medicaid funding, home and community-based services. Obviously this year, challenges to reproductive rights. So I think whenever we can get, you know, something to help out our mental health, that's great. And for some folks, that is an emotional support dog helps with that. Certainly helps me.
For sure. To sort of on that same kind of note, you know, what's your advocacy background and how long have you been doing advocacy work?
So I started with ASAN in 2011 as a volunteer event coordinator. And I did 3 years volunteering with ASAN. First, I did the first gala. I helped with that remotely. And then I started day of mourning with ASAN. Took a little detour, finished college, went to work in government, first on the Hill for a Senate office, and then for HHS. Then came back to ASAN, where I have been for the past 6 years. So that's, I really got into disability advocacy and the autistic rights movement because of how difficult I found college to be and independent living to be when I was first like trying to struggle through all of that. And I felt a real need to connect with other disabled students and, you know, just generally other people with disabilities who were like having various struggles conforming to what's expected of them by society. And that led me to policy advocacy, which is something I'm really interested in.
For sure. I bet that resounds with a lot of people, and that I think that all of our backgrounds are sort of evident in our work. And I think some of our oldest and most important resources are about that transition age and going to college and all that kind of stuff. So that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me take a look at our other closing questions and see if there's anything else I don't know how long I'm here for, but however long you need is fine with me. What stims or stim toys do you like best? I will answer that one. The like what kind of stim toys we like is also something that divides the office into little groups. For example, some people like a rubbery textured object and some people really hate a rubbery textured object. So that's another like controversy within ASAN is how we feel about silicone or rubber stim toys. I don't mind a rubber textured stim toy, but my favorites are manipulables. So like I have a little, like it's just a small ring and it has beads on it that you rotate the beads. Or I had like at some point, I think I've lost this, but a Lego truck that I spin the wheels on. Or it's like 2 interlocking rings and they connected by rubber bands and you turn them. So I just have a bunch of stim toys that I can like move and fiddle with and make do different things. I'm also a big fan of the like hard object in the center of the palm technique. So I have like a little chunk of amethyst that I use for that, or I have a wood carving that a friend made that I just like hang on to really hard. That's quite fun. I don't know. What are some of your guys' favorite stems?
This isn't a favorite stem of mine, but I thought I would show it off. These are the ASAN branded tangles
Oh yeah.
that we give out. I'm trying to it's not going to let me show the text. But these are the ASAN branded STEM toys. We have them in a bunch of colors, and we give them out to guests when we do an in-person gala. So I have this one from a previous gala. It's also in the goodie bags. In the goodie bags that you get at, can someone remind me which membership tier that's at?
I will go look it up.
But yeah, if people are able to become a member, specifically a reoccurring donor of ASAN, it's a can be a small amount, $3 or $5 a month to become a member. There are also scholarship memberships that are available to people who can't afford that. And with all members get the access to our members only newsletter, which contains kind of behind the scenes stuff at ASAN. If you liked if you like this, then you'll like our newsletter. There opportunity for us to slip some puns in there and some pet pictures. So please feel free to become a member of that. Our members are much appreciated. And they help us to do the work that we do every day.
And I think it's beginning at the dinosaur donors tier that people get the goodie bag.
Nice.
Great, thank you.
All of our membership tiers are themed on different special interests that people could have. So we have like cats, dinosaurs, trivia, outer space, whales, just lots of different cool special interests.
Yeah, so I have actually, in the next couple minutes before our next guest, who is already here, but we won't spoil that, I have pulled up our annual report and thought we could take a look at that. Our annual report covers everything we've done this year. It's a great wrap up, and it's always gorgeous. Our designer, Iante, won't be joining us tonight, but showing off the annual report that they really pour a lot into is like they're here. So this is where you can find it. It's online at our website. It's in the slider, so you can find it easily. It's called Creating Community. That was our sort of theme for this gala and for this year, was really pulling people together in that way. And you can find a screen reader accessible version, and it's here. Takes a sec, sorry. And it's here. Look how gorgeous this is. And it goes through everything that we've been through. Our mission, our executive director, Julia, wrote a letter that you can check out here. We've put it in different buckets of our work. So this first one is fighting discrimination and inequity, just to give you an idea of some of the things we've worked on, the victories we've had, the people we've worked with this year, highlighting autistic voices, community living, you got some people living in the community there, safety, really important. We've had some really big victories in restraint and inclusion in classrooms, and really trying to carry the energy of the COVID pandemic bringing people together to keep all of us safe, trying to really ride that out, and try to keep our communities safe. Here's our community. So inclusive education, full inclusion for trans and non-binary youth, including access to gender affirming care. A lot of overlap, and we try to be as intersectional as possible. We've done some interesting things on research this year, and as you may know, the Stop the Shock battle. So those are a bunch of different things you can read about, as well as COVID-19. It just keeps going. Reproductive justice, some updates on our equity plans, and then a breakdown of our expenses, revenue. You can see that you are a huge part of this. 33% of our budget comes from donations. That's individual donations. We do split that 3% is our membership dues, like we were talking about. So just for a small monthly contribution, you get some really cool perks. You get some behind the scenes access, and you get to make a really big difference in helping us do the work that we do. And this is how you can find us. But again, if you're watching this, you know how to find us. And then we have this beautiful memorial to Taylor, who we lost this last year. You can read more about their legacy and their community of care. And that is really a big part of why we focused on community building this year. It really is Taylor's legacy, and I hope that we can, and I hope that we can make them proud. So that's our annual report. Please check it out. I think we're really proud of what we've been able to accomplish this year with your help. I will stop that. And who wants to chat?
I'm always down to chat. Let me look at some more questions. Oh, favorite TV show is a good one. Right now I'm watching Dimension 20 on Sleeping City, the first season of it. But I see a lot of excitement for Unsleeping City. I like it quite a lot. The character Pete is just a mess, and I want to like protect him from everything. And there's a lot to protect the characters from, because like they fight battles every other episode. Also a big fan of Great British Bake Off. But I see that we are getting ready for our next guest, so I will head out.
I was just going to add, we were talking about dropout content earlier. Game Changer is a favorite show of mine.
Always down for Game Changer. That's great. All right. It was great talking with everyone.
Thanks, Zoe. Thanks for Katie's food. Awesome. So like, if you haven't guessed it by now, we're going to have, staff hopping on, hopping off, talking with us, sharing their special interests, some about them. And next up is Larkin. So Larkin, tell us what's up.
Is it just the weird lighting, or do I have a background on?
Oh, I think you have a background on, but I can pull it off because I know what you might want to do. One sec. Ooh, I think you have to do it in your settings.
Okay.
Sorry.
Let's see.
If you hover over your image on the upper right-hand corner, there's 3 dots. That's how I did it earlier.
Okay. Virtual background. None. Okay.
There we go.
Hey, sorry about the weird lighting. I'm coming to you from my garage that was a carport until pretty recently, and I haven't installed much overhead lighting yet. I'm Larkin Taylor Parker. I'm the legal director here at ASAN. You may have seen me in some of our presentations on some law and policy issues. I'm fairly new. I've only been on staff since the spring. And here tonight with my fire truck. I've always cycled through interests, and I've always had a number of things going on. But the big project right now is this 1920s fire engine I'm restoring. And I love history, I love mechanical things. So this is kind of at the center of the Venn diagram of things I like. It's also something that's played a significant role in the history of my family, because it belonged to my grandfather and my uncle before I ended up with it. My grandfather was dyslexic, and that was something that was really a defining feature of his life. He could probably have finished college, I'm sure, with academic accommodations, but they didn't really exist when he was there. So there was a lot that he had to figure out himself in terms of a career. He worked all his life in construction and adjacent fields, did a lot of really hard labor, but always pursued his interests, which were pretty intense. I think he was a few traits short of an autism diagnosis, but pretty close to being one of us. And one of the weird things he acquired over time, this was someone who lived on like 7 acres of decrepit heavy equipment by the time I came along, was this random early fire truck, the first non-horse-drawn fire engine in the next town. I'll walk around and show you the front before I end this. Kind of cool. But
Oh, Larkin, your video went off.
yeah, I'm moving. I don't
Oh,
want to
okay.
make anyone sick. Walking along the fenders.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Looks
Yeah, I
like
wanted
Chitty
to show
Bang
you all
Bang.
that. It's great to be with you all tonight and to work at a place where I get to serve our community. Really hope everyone has enjoyed the gala and wanted to express my gratitude for your support.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us.
Awesome. Another thing that we're divided on is what we do at ASAN. Not, it's once again a false dichotomy. We say we have a policy team and an operations team. Then that operations team tends to get split down into communications people too. And probably to no one's surprise, the communications people are we're easier to convince to come hop on here, but who doesn't love to chat about their special interest? So we really appreciate everyone hopping on and joining us and telling us about fire trucks and policy and stuff like that. But there's a lot of overlap. We wear a lot of hats. So once again, I'm joking about it being that divided. We aren't split down the middle, and we love everybody.
I think that's a good time to bring up one of the questions from this list that I think is not really up for debate at ASAN. I just saw it on the list and I thought it was a good time. What are your opinions on trains?
Wrong, yes.
I believe trains was its own gala theme one year.
Yes.
Before my time.
That was my suggestion. I really enjoy trains. I haven't ridden that many trains. I'm just going to talk about trains now. This wasn't even supposed to be a special interest minute, but it is now. I haven't ridden a lot of trains in the US because they're not the most efficient way to get around. But I have lived in Europe and I've lived in Japan. And especially when I lived in Japan, I took a lot of trains. And it was great, very easy to get around. If you lived a 15-minute walk from a train station, that is considered to be very inconvenient.
Wow.
Yes, it's a very robust tourism system. One of the problems though is it's not very accessible. A lot of stations, especially in not even rural areas, but in smaller cities, Tokyo is doing better at this, but aren't very wheelchair accessible. And even sometimes they have steps to get in, or you have to ask somebody to pull over a ramp for you to get onto the train, which is not ideal. Washington, D.C. Subway system is a very rare case in that I think it was the earliest train system or subway system to be built for 100% of the stations to be wheelchair accessible.
Wow.
People who live in DC know that sometimes that access is theoretical and that the elevators can break down. But it is a cool fact about Washington, D.C. that the trains were built with accessibility in mind. And let's see. I don't know, I could keep going on. I could keep going on about trains.
We love public transportation. Oh, Julia is not able to join us tonight, but she would want me to say Congress has a secret train and it should belong to the people.
Yes, Congress does have a secret train. It is a train that goes from underneath the Senate to underneath the main area, of the Capitol. There are actually two trains. One is available for guests to ride on if you are accompanied by somebody from a Hill office. The other is reserved only for senators. That one is enclosed and looks like a mini subway car. And the other one is open air. I have had the pleasure of riding it twice with ACI students who have come to do a Hill visit with their legislators. And on that note, we are holding a Hill Day December 7th, asking people to schedule a virtual visit or go to the district office of your senators and representatives to ask them to include a ban on electric skin shocks in the end of year omnibus bill. We almost got a ban passed in the FDA SLA, but sadly it was passed without any amendments. So it's really important that we keep calling and that we meet with our senators and representatives. So it is not too late. Try and schedule a meeting. Even if you can't schedule a meeting for December 7th, that's great. If you're not sure how to do a Hill visit or have never done a Hill visit, you're in luck because we did a training yesterday on how to do a Hill visit, and that training is on our YouTube and linked. Yep, and linked in the chat in just 1 second. So yes, please consider doing that or getting groups and other people you know to do it with you. All right, I see we have a question. Ira, who is an ACI alum, asked in the chat, how many of you know about autistics.org? Autistics.org is an old website. I think it's, gosh, now I'm being quizzed on it. A much older website in the early 2000s, maybe 2010s. And has a lot to do with early organizing online in the autistic advocacy movement, which if for more information on that, you can check out Autistic Archive, which is not an ASAN project, but it's a project that Ira works on that talks about the history of the neurodiversity and autistic advocacy movements. Yes.
There's also this really cool, I'm linking an open access book called Autistic Community and the Neurodiversity Movement. That's a really comprehensive history written by a lot of the people who were there. And it's also, I believe, largely plain language. So it is designed to be as accessible as possible. And it's really cool, but we also love the Autistic Archive, which we can link to in the chat.
So we'll share that in just a sec. I also wanted to share, just since I hadn't seen it yet, our guide on how to meet virtually with your elected officials, especially since we've been talking about that. We have done a lot of cool resources over the years while I've been working here and before I did, but this is one of my favorites because I think we talk about how important it is to talk to your elected officials, and it's super important because it's a lot harder to ignore your constituents when they're meeting with you face to face or over Zoom or even calling on the phone. But also it is unintentionally and intentionally sometimes difficult to navigate and figure out how to do that. So it's important to have resources like this.
Definitely.
I think we can also grab another question, unless there are more comments about the trains.
I did take over that answer. So feel free if anyone else would like to pitch in about trains.
I had fun making train puns that year that we did pun. That was one of the better years for puns. Just we had a lot to work with.
Yeah, building community is super, super important. And I'm glad that we're focusing on it. It doesn't lend itself to many puns, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I think we can't go back to, do you have any pets? Since we talked to Zoe about K Spoon. I do have a dog named Stitch. He does not live with me. It's always very funny when I tell folks he lives on a farm. But he's actually he's not even 2 years old yet. He's alive and well. He really just lives on a farm with my parents in Wisconsin, because he bonded with my family's dogs before I moved here to DC. So I have a dog named Stitch. He's going to be 2 in December. We share a birth month. So he's a good boy. Meredith.
This is Franklin. He got up when I called him. He is not my cat. He just has chosen me. He is my roommate's cat. But I'm his person. Don't tell her. But he's really sweet. He was sleeping over there. He's great. He's really good at communicating. When he wants to be done, he certainly is done. He's very chill. I'm just messing around with him now. But when he's ready to be done, he communicates it and we respect it. So
we love a self-advocate.
Hello, I've returned.
Yeah.
I don't have any animal pets, but I have plant pets. This is one. Give me 1 second. This is a satin pothos, which, here we go, has these little silver spots. I'm going to turn off the background blur. Give me 1 second. There we go. Yeah, and here is a leaf that has no satin spots at all. It just grew like that. And then here is a staghorn fern. They are called a staghorn fern because the fronds look like antlers. So especially when you have a big one, people will put them in a moss ball and put them on the wall so it looks like they're mounted.
That's so cool.
But it actually has 2 types of fronds. There's these big fronds like here, and then there are shield fronds, which this plant is very young, so it doesn't have much of one. But the shield fronds will gradually grow to cover the entire root ball of the plant. And the shield frond protects it.
Very cool.
Very cool. We are talking about pets. Donnie has just joined us. Hi, Donnie.
Donnie. Yeah, as our next guest, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Donnie Gunham and my pronouns are they, them, theirs. I am a young white adult with a shaved head wearing a blue dress with slugs on it. I work as a publications associate. That means I write, illustrate, and design many of our plain language and easy read resources. I also work on more technical resources, like white papers or technical reports.
We had been talking about how we are sort of split into policy and operations, but a lot of us cross over. And I think you're the perfect example of that, because you do wear a lot of hats and have a lot of expertise and don't really fit into either team in the best way. So we're all ASAN. So Donnie, with your work that you do, what's your favorite toolkit or resource that we released this year?
My favorite resource we released this year has to be Our Rights Under Threat, What Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization Means for People with Disabilities. This is plain language toolkit about the Supreme Court decision that overturned the right to abortion this year. While the decision itself is awful, it also has impacts far beyond abortion. We don't know if the right for two people of the same gender to get married would be impacted, for example. We don't know how people's right to privacy from the government would be affected. But we do know that all these things are now under attack and that we have to fight even harder to keep them. I worked on a lot of the Our Rights Under Threat toolkit, and I worked very closely with the policy team on it, especially iLink. I'm very grateful to have been able to work on this toolkit because there's really not any other equivalent, comprehensive plain language resource out there. It's so important for people to be able to understand what their rights are, and especially when their rights are threatened. It's also important that people understand when other people's rights are threatened, because that's part of building allyship and cross-group organizing. I'm very grateful I got to work on such an important resource.
For sure. That's awesome. I have to say that's that's probably my favorite resource we've done this year, or maybe ever. And we did it so quickly too. I mean, it was really truly rapid response. So what's your advocacy background?
My advocacy background started in journalism in high school. I was really fascinated with how newspaper articles could draw attention to marginalized groups and causes and boost the voices of people who are often deliberately silenced or unheard. I've always been a really strong writer, and I wanted to be able to apply those talents to good causes. I also became interested in public health and improving the lives of people with disabilities and health conditions in high school. This was before I really identified as disabled myself. In college, I continued to work at the school newspaper as an opinion writer and editor. I focused on LGBTQ+ and disability issues. I also started organizing with the and around this time. In 2018, I attended a Zachi summer program, and that was just amazing. Through college and graduate school, I really focused on advocating for students with disabilities across campus and building community for students with disabilities. I feel like that's a big piece that is sometimes left out of organizing. It can be really lonely to be disabled sometimes, in building a community that you can go to not just for advocacy, but also just for social spaces is important. Since graduating, I've worked in my current position with and
For sure. I didn't realize that you were a journalist. That's cool. I'm learning things tonight.
Mm.
And on a related note, do you have any funny or interesting advocacy stories?
the funny advocacy story I have is about how I met my partner. One of my big special interests is in sex education, primarily sex education for people with disabilities. A couple years ago, I wrote a long blog post about how symbol-based AAC devices often don't have the vocabulary or symbols that AAC users need to talk about sex, dating, and sexuality. My partner, this is long before we got together, saw it and liked it. And then a year or so later, we were both in this group chat for a virtual advocacy class we were both in, and he recognized me and we really hit it off. And now, almost 2 years after that, we're together and living quite happily. So you could say my advocacy writing got me a boyfriend, I suppose.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. That's awesome. That's everything. Wow. Yeah, that's all we have ready for you. Oh, this is that.
Is Evie available / interested in being on camera? No problems if the answer is no.
Ah,
Ooh, if not, I do have her, I have her Halloween costume on hand. From this sounds weird. I don't just keep pictures of other people's pets. But I did it made a newsletter appearance. Let's see.
I don't know where she is, unfortunately.
No problem. We're asking people if they happen to have their pet handy, but Evie is a very pretty cat. Very fluffy.
Evie's also notoriously a cat against work. So in fairness, this is work. So I understand why she'll be hiding.
I think dog people outnumber cat people at ASAN. Speaking of dichotomies.
That's a false dichotomy if I've ever heard one.
I know. I think many people are both, because Meredith had a dog at one point and now has roommate's cat. But one of our coworkers has 5 cats.
Ooh.
Who is an outlier and should not have been counted.
I'm sorry, but let me not ask for people's personal information. I was excited.
They have 5 cats, and the cats have formed alliances and enemies, so that they inhabit different parts of the house. They form territories.
Yeah, I was not convinced that there were actually 5 cats, because she kept sending pictures and being like, oh yeah, this is blah blah blah, and I'm like, yeah, I've seen that cat before. And then she'd send a pic and be like, oh yeah, this is different blah blah blah, and be like, I've seen that cat before. But no, there really are 5 cats, and they are all kept separately based on their alliances. It's wild. I do have here, I'll put Evie on blast. This is her dino costume. She is a very pretty cat, loves to not let work happen. I think she started the cats against work trend. Legend.
mm,
Thank you, Donnie, for visiting. You're free to stay on, but you can also sign off now.
I thought with talking to Donnie about all of the work that they do on so many of our resources, it could be a good time to talk about some of the resources that we've done this year. And like specifically, I would love to know what folks' favorites are. I know I talked about the virtual Hill Guide is one of my favorites. I also love just all of our COVID resources, especially the videos. I know videos are particularly helpful for me. And oh gosh, Rights and Respect is, I think, my favorite of our resources right now, because I've shared that with like friends and family. And that was part of our Proud and Supported series.
Yes. Do you want to briefly describe what Rights and Respect is about, or do you want me to?
Go for it.
Okay. Yeah. So Rights and Respect is one of our 2 toolkits so far. There will be more coming that are specifically about people with IDD that also have people with IDD that are also part of the LGBTQ+ community. So Rights and Respect is specifically about the rights and respect that you have, especially when we are talking about group homes or congregate settings. What is your rights when it comes to dating another person, to having sex, that kind of thing. It's as well as rights getting medical care, that kind of thing. It's a really important resource. And the entire resource is in easy read and plain language. So it is a great resource. Donnie and I did a lot of work on that.
And that came out during Pride Month of this year, right?
Yes. I do
Time
remember.
is an illusion, but I know it was this year.
Yes.
But I would love to hear what folks' favorite resources are. If not from this year, then just in general. We have so many. And also sometimes I have to look at the list and go, was that this year or
Time is an illusion, but our resources are not. I really like our ethics of intervention. It's called For Whose Benefit. It is about ABA. It's about ABA, and it is the most comprehensive smackdown of it I have seen in one place. I'm not tooting my own horn. It's not by me, but I think it deserves the praise. This work is important, and it slaps. And I point at a lot of people to this resource, because I think it is so important.
Yeah.
absolutely. Avery, do you have a favorite?
I'm trying to think. I don't know if I have a favorite. They're all also I don't know what all came out this year because time is an illusion. I do know that racial disparities in community living, which is also called Crisis in Our Communities, came out this year in February, and is a really cool toolkit because it takes all of these issues like housing, like the criminal legal system, and talks about how racial disparities affect them and how how racism plays a part in the systems that we have here in the US. So that is a really cool toolkit. It's very comprehensive and ended up being much longer than we thought it would be. But our team did great work on that.
Absolutely. And Alex, do you have a favorite? I see you put For Whose Benefit in the chat.
Yeah, I'm just trying to link things as people go. And I'm also not deliberately not participating. My brain just does the thing of like, I have not been summoned, so I will be quiet. Just wanted to clarify for audiences. To be honest, I don't know that I've done deep enough dives yet. For context, I have joined the ASIN team in when did I join? Oh God, October. It has only been 2 months. It's been October. But ASIN has been an organization that I've followed for years, which makes me sound much more frightening than I am. So I think it's a thing of like, I found ASIN purely by the fact of like, every time I needed an autistic resource that was not done by like somebody who didn't care about us and were also not us, like I ended up on ASIN's website. And so it's just this thing of like, oh, thank you. And you've also produced it in an easy to digest format. So I think I'm just going to give a general shout out of like, where do I need to go? Oh, it's probably the ASIN website. It's probably the ASIN website.
Love that. And Alex, why don't you do a special interest minute?
Sure. So I have to cover this. My special interest that I chose today, I have a lot of them. I chose my background before going into advocacy work was I'm a creative writer. And so I have a lot of connection between history and publishing and policy and advocacy work. So I found a way to play 6 Degrees to Kevin Bacon with the LGBT rights movement and like publishing and stuff. So I give you, my special interest is lesbian pulp fiction. For folks who don't know, and let me see if I can, I'm not going to, hey, there we go. So I can't show you, I'll just give you a visual description. This is a pink zine that is roughly 1/2 centimeter thick. It's delightful. It's full of so much gossip, but it is part of a vintage cover and it says T is for trash. It is by Becca Stickler. And it shows a cover of 2 white femmes looking at each other with like sultry gazes. in various states of not being dressed. But the lesbian pulp fiction was essentially a space in which, in the 1950s, sapphic women could, in fact, see themselves represented. And what's interesting is this is happening at the same time that we are seeing the first round of essentially like the LGBT rights movement in the United States. So if you're thinking about history of censorship laws, I'm also trying to keep this happy because like there's a lot of little points where I could be like, and here it goes sad. But the cool thing about lesbian pulp fiction is not just the juicy drama between various lesbian authors who are mad at each other, or the fact that they were operating under like pen names, but it's the fascinating thing of the ways in which we saw circumvention of censorship laws. So there's Bebo Brinker. If you're really bored one night and want something juicy, Google Bebo Brinker, the series, because it's one of the biggest lesbian pulp series. And this author like did so much to get away with giving Bebo a happy ending. Because there's like 5 books and Bebo continuously, and yes, her name is Bebo. I don't know, I can't help you. She's just a butch in the 1950s and that's what their names were. Like, so it's a story, like the key thing to get past censorship in the mail, because there was a lot of stuff happening in the mail and censorship that I can't get into, was the lesbians just couldn't stay together at the end of the book. And so what a lot of the authors who were actually queer women did is just find a way to contrive for them to part. Or they would just do the thing of the entire novel would basically be a romance novel, and then the last chapter would have whatever got it past the censorship. So that meant that there were so many women who would write into these publishing houses and write into these authors because they were getting to see stories about their lives. And because you could just rip out the last chapter and you had a complete story. And at the same time, these were just flying off the shelves because they were riding by as fodder audience for straight men, which has a long history that is still relevant today. So that is my probably 5 minutes of rambling about lesbian pulp fiction and not the publishing industry, because I will never stop. Thank you.
Love it. That's awesome. As our newest staff member, where do you fit into the ASAN lore? How do you feel about puns? How do you feel about memes? How do you feel about bees? As in like bees, like they sting, not like the letter. And how do you feel about trains? There are right answers.
I see. Okay. I'll try to remember all those things you've now asked me. I'll start with bees because I have an interesting story of years ago, I was in a queer sorority, and one of my sorority siblings is the reason why I'm no longer frightened of bees, because this sibling, she was so chill. A bee landed on one of our other siblings' necklace. And like, so we're all panicking. And she walks up to it with a pen and just holds the pen. And the bee just climbs on to the pen. She just holds it away. And the bee leaves. And she's like, yeah, actually, most bees don't sting. They're just like curious about you, and changed my life. I will now not panic when a bee enters my vicinity. I'm just like, I see you are here to inspect me. And also, as long as I don't like start to flail, it'll be fine. It has helped me in so many situations and allowed me to help others. So that's my fun bee fact of the day. Trains, I don't actually have a lot of deep thoughts about trains. The other day I was near the tracks. Fun fact about the city I live in, Houston. We're currently having an issue with the trains in that there's something up. I don't know full details, so please, no one from Houston come to me about this. But essentially, we're having issues where the trains are just stopping for hours on some parts of town. We have multiple different tracks that run through the city. But the other day I was over in one of our arts districts, and I was just like watching the train because I was just like, yeah, good shaky thunder sound. Like, so that's about my extent of feelings about trains, is like them big. And also, why don't we have more of them? Public transportation forever. Like, we could have so much more efficiency in this country if we had an extensive train system that let me get from point A to point B, because I have like friends and family that are scattered across the country, and I live in a state that has no train system that gets me to another state. So there's my train opinions, actually.
Maybe we
Memes are
could
my,
get it out of you.
yeah, I was like, actually, yes, I do have train opinions. I have train opinions about economy of like transportation and labor, like labor rights and access. Just not about train function or anything. Can't tell you about that other than could go fast, don't have fast. And most of my meme comes from Tumblr, because I was a part of Tumblr in the oldest era of it. So I'm just sort of like caked in these ways that allow me to seem like I know a lot more about popular media than I do firsthand. It's very handy. It's how I get through a lot of social situations of like, sure, I've definitely seen the War of the Stars, or like any other numerous pop culture things. Yeah, I definitely saw that. No, I didn't. Like, if you want a pop reference, like Golden Girls or The Nanny named Fran, I could definitely like actually give you firsthand knowledge there, because I'm that guy, but otherwise, no. And there was one more thing.
Puns.
Thank you. Okay. I'm also not good at puns. I'm not great. I accidentally make both puns and innuendos, and like people look at me and are like, I see what you did there, and then I'm like, oh God, I did that. I'm so sorry. So I do enjoy them though. Like, I find them amusing in the way of like, but I also find them amusing in the same way that I sometimes like to eat something that I think is a terrible flavor, because it's just like a sensory experience that I am going through. It's like puns are a linguistic experience that I'm going through. And sometimes they are just terrible, but I like them anyway. It's like choosing to eat Warheads candy. That's it.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you'll fit in here. Like this, anyway, like this is not your place of employment, but some kind of cool club. Anyway.
I get to get a jacket.
Yeah. Anyway, that's us walking up to the hill.
I mean, we do have, like t-shirts. That's almost a jacket.
We do. We have t-shirts.
Yeah.
We have mugs. We have merch. You
Oh,
can
yeah,
put
I
our
opened the
logo
merch
on
store.
anything. Yeah, the merch store, above and beyond. Again, I don't have any part in it, but they're killing it. The merches.
Here.
The merchants.
The merches.
Let me find
Highly
that for the
recommend.
folks at home.
Yeah.
Yes.
Highly recommend it for I enjoy it for last minute gifts. I say last minute as if it is not December yet, but
Not.
in my mind, after October, it's last minute. I've
Gosh.
sketched.
Yeah. The end of the year just snowballs, and I'm like, I don't know. I blinked and it's suddenly November's over. Like,
I think we have time for another question. I was gonna say we've done a lot of fun questions, as if this is not fun, but I would love to hear, like, we talked to Donnie about this, but like how other folks got into advocacy, or just how long you've been doing advocacy.
I'm just gonna stand up so my shirt is in the screen, because I wore it deliberately for this. But my shirt is a gray and white, I think these are called baseball tees. I adore them because they are both wide sleeved and don't touch my wrists, which fit my sensory needs. But it says protect trans youth on it. I fell into advocacy via my sorority in a lot of ways, because my sorority is when I like clocked on to the fact of like, oh, I'm queer. And then I was like, oh, there's an organization being founded on my campus that is about queer movement. And I'm also a big yeehaw about this, because folks tend to view Texas a particular type of way. And like, there's a lot of queer advocacy work, and particularly trans advocacy work, being done here. We're one of the biggest communities in the US. And I'm just clearly now bragging on my britches here. But basically just trying to find community is the way I kept stumbling into advocacy. And then like disability advocacy actually started happening within the sorority organization I was part of, in part because it was me and some other disabled siblings being like, our chapters across the country sure having troubles. Like, and just sort of like a handful of us just like trying to figure things out. And then one sibling in particular did a disability, like history of the disability rights movement. And then I like started finding out stuff about like disability justice and like Sins Invalid and like care work, which I think is a book that almost everybody at this point is like, it's like the ubiquitous thing. And so it's one of those like stumbling things of like, I'm one of those humans who's like, you open all the doors behind you as you go through them. And you also make sure they have the right width and accessibility ramp attached.
Hell yeah. Heck. Oh, I got into, there's a helicopter. Can you hear that?
Only for a
Sorry.
moment.
Okay. Only for a moment. My background is in film. I was a documentary filmmaker, and I have always cared a lot. I was banned from watching the nightly news because I would spiral because I could not do anything to help the people that were hurting on the news. And then I kind of combined the two. But then at the same time, I was figuring out I was autistic, going to college, similar to lots of other folks. It got amplified when the services were no longer there, or I had to seek them out myself. So I was really starting to struggle, and I used film to really communicate that I care a lot, but also that I'm going through a period of change in my own life, and figured out that I could be an advocate like that. And then I did some theory stuff, and I then realized that I don't like to do theory. I like to get my hands dirty, and I came over here to ASEN.
I love it. I similarly, I think I started in high school with like queer advocacy. I grew up in a town that has just like progressively gotten more and more not about all that I am. But I did find my groove in college. I like joined the LGBTQIA student org, and then very quickly was like one of the very vocal disabled folks. So it was easy to like get in on the policy stuff. My background is actually in illustration. I started out and still am like very into media representation, which I think is super important. I just don't find it super satisfying without also having the like advocacy side of things going on at the same time. So I got into like civic media, just combining all the stuff that I enjoy, which unfortunately includes social media. Despite what it is, I think it's a potentially wonderful tool, a thing that I care very deeply about. But yeah, combining all of that, like very naturally went into working in communications in various like social justice-y ways. And then I made my way to ASEN.
Yeah, I will go next. Similar, I got my freshman year of college, I got into autistic and advocacy and neurodiversity movement, and applied to go to ASAN's ACI program, which is our college leadership program. So I did that in 2015. And it really helped my advocacy, gave me a lot of the tools that I needed. If you are a current college student, please, and are autistic, please apply to our ACI program. Yeah, that then I got really involved with advocacy for the rest of my time in college. And after college, I lived in Japan for a year teaching English, and then came back to DC to work for ASAN, which one of my like new tasks was to plan and execute ACI. So it's great to work on this same program that gave me so much benefit in my advocacy work.
Yeah.
That's really
Thank you.
cool.
ACI is one of my favorite programs.
Yes.
Just put the link in the chat, but for sure check that out. Obviously ACI has already happened this year because it's nearly the end. But
applications will open for new ACI in January, early
Yay.
January. So stay tuned.
yes, very exciting. Feel free to share that and keep an eye out. That is one of my favorite of our programs.
Yes, mine as well.
I wanted to flag, we have a question that came in through YouTube of what are some common interests among ASIN staff?
Trains?
I will say something that started I think an hour-long conversation today was Dropout TV and just all of their good programming.
Hey, if you have connections with Dropout and you're watching this, let's work together. Come on, let's hang out. We're got a lot of cool things coming up that would make a lot of sense to work together on. And you know, I think it'd be really cool. I think we've mentioned you 4 times in this video. That's free advertising. Anyway.
To reference Brennan Lee Mulligan, if you're work with Dropout, get in the comments.
Sam Wright, you seem like a very cool dude creating very cool content.
Adley Beardsley, call me.
But yeah, I think beyond that, obviously we're all interested in advocacy in different ways and in different formats. We're all I think, you know, have our special interests, which are very varied, but also they have points of overlap. I know I have enough special interests that I forget what they are, and then someone like brings up something related and I'm like, oh, let me talk about this. Is something I do frequently.
Dinosaurs is also one for some folks it's a special interest, for other folks it's just like, hell yeah.
I just think they're neat.
Yeah, but dinosaurs is like a super common one in the office. There are many office dinosaurs. If you sign up for a newsletter, there are sometimes members only newsletters from the office dinosaurs, which is very fun.
They write it on by themselves. We
Yes.
like walk into the office one day and there's like a letter on our desk, and there's like a sticky note. And the sticky note says your next members only newsletter, and we just type it up and send it.
The pause after your next was very important to me. But yeah, they're super cool. You can get super cool things if you join the members only newsletter, if you become a member, and like we talked about, just because it's on my mind as December approaches, there are like very, very cool things in the shop right now. I believe we added a new design this year over the summer, which is very exciting, and you should definitely check it out.
Yes, plus we have a members only design
Yes.
every year, which is very cool. That was our design from 2 years ago, from 2020. It was our ASAN space mug.
Yes, yeah, when it's mirrored, it looks fine. It's ASAN, not NASA.
But yeah, no, your contributions mean a lot to us. They're what keeps us going and allows us to keep doing this work. So appreciate if you can donate, if you can become a member, if you can keep calling the Hill and asking them to shop the shop. All of the ways that you could support our work really help us out.
Absolutely. Go for it.
Yeah, I have a minor complaint. I was told I could talk about women's soccer.
I was just gonna say, Meredith,
Yes.
your
Okay, great.
special interest minute. I felt it.
Thank you. Sorry, I love to yeah, anyway, so in my special interest minute in is women's soccer. I am the rare sports autistic. Love it. Only women's sports though. I do treat men's sports the way that most sports fans treat women's sports, which is to make fun of them at every opportunity while not actually watching them. It helps them get a little dose of their own medicine. I am a huge fan of the Washington Spirit, which is the DC pro team. I like to think that they're fans of me too, because I have a bunch of their stuff. The captain gave me her armband. She signed it. I think it's a really cool armband. It's got the whole DC flag. It's got like the monuments and stuff. It says the Spirit, and then it's signed by her. She is a player with the women's national team who are you've probably heard of for winning multiple championships back to back. I have a glove from Audrey Bledsoe, who is the goalkeeper. This was after she played at the national team. So you can represent your country, and that would be like the Olympics happen every 4 years, and you see them there, but there are also always games where you play for your country, but at the same time your sort of day job is playing at these cities elsewhere, so you can play for both club and country. And this goalkeeper is here with the DC team, but she was playing with the national team in DC. She gave me her glove, she signed it, it was really cool. I was a goalkeeper. I think being an autistic goalkeeper helped me see the field really well, because you have to see everything, and keep aware of where the ball is. I no longer play, but I do actually have a signed card of this goalkeeper who is proudly actually autistic. And I have a picture with her, and I think I sent her an ASN t-shirt, just because I think it's so cool. She really speaks up about how it is hard to be autistic and a pro soccer player. The lights of the stadium get to her, and there's a lot of different sounds. I do find it exhausting to go to games. I love it. It's worth the like 48 hours of recovery I have to go through. And but I wouldn't change it for the world, but I can only imagine what it must be like to actually be a pro player. So that was my several minutes. Thank you.
I loved it. Also, revolutionary take on men's sports.
Thank you. Apparently there is a men's World Cup going on right now.
I've never heard of it.
I know. And get back to me when they've won 4.
Incredible. We want to do one last group question.
Sure, sounds good.
I would love to hear if folks have any funny or interesting advocacy stories.
I definitely have them. I just don't know if I can think of them now.
Right. It's like if someone asks your favorite book, and then my mind says, I've never read a book.
This was not my story, but a good friend of mine was at the Capitol when the ADAPT protesters were getting arrested. I promise this is funny and or interesting, but it was she was standing there with ADAPT, and someone came through and said, if you don't want to be arrested, you need to go home right now. And she like looked at this person and was like you're like telling us this. And they were like, well, yeah, we don't really want to arrest you. And they were like, okay, then like don't. But we all know how that ended up. So
I don't know. I'm trying to think of a funny, like, I guess I used to do charity drag shows, which is not really like inherently like I don't have a particularly funny story other than like we basically like the other LGBT group on campus would organize at a local bar and like it was great. It's actually a delightful time of just like, please throw money at the stage. We're going to give it to the children. Thanks. Like there's a local youth org and like I can't think. I did have a time where I got to climb off the stage while performing Macklemore's thrift shop into the audience. So that way people would shove money into my pockets that we then like brought back onto the stage. There was another performer who the MC dressed as Ursula from The Little Mermaid and was absolutely delightful and like had a 1.5 foot tall wig that like she had made herself. Those were very fun times that were just like, and now you get to support the youth in the community.
Incredible.
Fantastic. Dean, do you have one?
I do. I think this is funny now. It was, I don't think it was super funny in the moment. But it's funny now because hindsight. I was at a protest in like the dead of winter in Chicago. It wasn't like the coldest night, but it was like the year that we hit -50. So it like it's cold. But like we're there putting a good fight in front of the Chicago police, one of the Chicago police departments. And like it is a miserable time just because of the weather and also the nature of protests often. And we had a friend and I had like just left because we were both disabled folks. And we're like, okay, we're gonna try to warm up a bit. And I got a frantic call. I had like several calls from my mother who was like, hey, call me. It's an emergency. And my mom is a good ally. So if she has something anxious to tell me, she will text me that, hey, everything's cool, or like, this is not about you, even if it's an emergency, but had not done this. So it was like, she's upset about this, I guess. I don't know why I assumed it was about the protest. And basically she called and was like, your brother. And it truly does not matter what it was. It wasn't important, but my brother was in high school at this time, so everything he does is nonsense. But it was my mom is a very good ally, but also I thought she was going to be upset because this was a rowdier protest. So at the time, I was just like very anxious about this, but no, she was like fully supportive, and it's funny now. And it was anxiety inducing in the moment. Yeah. Do you have one, Avery?
Not right now. The one I can think of is about somebody else, and I won't share it here.
That's fair. Would you like to take a minute to talk about your special interest?
Yes. I feel like I've already taken 2 minutes, one about trains and one about plants, but I'll take another. Okay, so I know I said I was going to do a different special interest, but I want to talk about whales, because I don't think we've talked about whales enough on this conversation. I really like whales. They're my favorite animal. I'm going to specifically call out sperm whales because my friend, who's a marine biologist, recently spent a month on an Arctic expedition at sea and saw a sperm whale. Sperm whales are pretty rare, mostly due to whaling, but we'll stay off of that. But sperm whales can get up to 70 feet long. That's very long. There's the second largest whale. A sperm whale is the whale that Moby Dick is from Moby Dick. Sperm whales have really large heads that are very blocky, and the theory is that especially males have them for fighting to ram them. That is how the real life whale that Moby Dick is named is made after, because he rammed whaling ships. Yes. Oh. Yes, so that is
I just learned that the whale is named Moby Dick. This is not like a Frankenstein's monster thing.
no, the whale is named Moby Dick.
Wow.
And I can go into it, but it's actually based on two real life whales. One is the whale that took down the Essex, and the other had a very similar name that I'm blanking on at the moment. But yes, Moby Dick is the whale's name. And yeah, so sperm whales are I'm gonna keep going. Sperm whales are very deep divers. The main part of their diet is squid, including giant squid. So they dive really deep down. They are not the species that can dive the deepest of all species on Earth, but they're up there. Also up there are beaked whales. Beak whales are some of the rarest whales. There's not a lot known about them. We don't even know how many species there are. Potentially a new species was discovered in 2020. But beaked whales are small, but they dive really deep. Again, sperm whales also dive really deep, where they fight with squid. And that's a big component of their diet. Yeah, sperm whales are great. Again, they're very large. I can keep going. That's just one whale species.
Whenever we're talking about special interests, it's fun because it's like a promise and a threat. You're like, I can keep going. I can't. Unfortunately, it is 8:30.
Yes, thank you all for joining us tonight. And I hope that this gave you an opportunity to see a little more about the people behind the face of ASAN. Unfortunately, many of our coworkers couldn't make it tonight, but I hope you enjoyed hearing from the people who could make it. And please consider, as we go into the end of year giving season, donating or becoming a member if possible. And again, we just want to thank all of you for your support throughout the year and throughout the years to come.
I have also put in the chat the link to the YouTube if you want to catch up on anything you missed from the gala. And if you're on YouTube, you're already there. But thank you so much for joining us this month.
All right. Bye, everyone.